two, one, two, three, four.
You're not going to allow me to talk at all, yeah?
Yeah. This might sound a little controversial. Is this field more convenient for women? India is in fact the diabetes capital of the world, if I'm not wrong.
Political thing है कि why rice and meat have been started.
No pun intended. Welcome to the first episode of Black Coffee Conversations, where we have conversations over coffee on a wide array of subjects ranging from health, fitness to art. And in today's video, we have one of my childhood friend who's a fellow dog lover. She's a DNB in family medicine. She's been practicing family medicine for the past 10 years. She's a mom to 2 kids, and I'm pretty sure she does an amazing job juggling between her responsibilities as a family medicine doctor and her own family. So, before I begin, I would like to ask you a simple
You're
question.
not going to allow me to talk at all, yeah? खुद ही बात करे जा रहा है. Thank you, Dr. Rohan, for the kind introduction, and I would like to believe that I'm doing justice to both the roles: a mom, a wife, and also a family medicine expert.
So that brings me to my first question. Can you explain our viewers what is this specialty? Like, I've heard about an ENT surgeon or a gynecologist, but not many people are aware about family medicine specialist. So can you just elaborate firstly about your journey of becoming a doctor, and why did you choose this field in particular?
Okay, to start with, I'll tell you about why I became a doctor. So basically, I was always wanting to be a veterinary doctor.
Oh.
And my mom, being my mom, she told me that actually this happened during the selection, the counseling round. There was actually a BBSC seat, and I was getting an MBBS seat. So my mom is, to MBBS छोड़ के BBS से नहीं करिए, veterinary नहीं बनेगी. So that is what happened, and that is how I ended up being a doctor.
Yeah, but when it comes to brown parents, you don't really have a choice. I've personally experienced this.
Not that I regret it, I do enjoy what I'm doing.
Yes. But I have a similar experience that I would like to share, wherein I was getting an MBBS seat and I had already chosen dentistry, and my parents were behind me to leave that seat and go back becoming a doctor. But I had a meltdown and I told them I want to be a dentist. I don't want to get up after 9 o'clock, deal with emergencies, and I'm happy with my decision as well.
Right.
So I think it ends well for both of us.
Yes.
So just tell me, why did you choose to take family medicine in particular when you had the option of so many other subjects or specialities?
So when I went into medicine, I really didn't know what it, that there would be a PG. After these 5 years, you actually had to do a post-graduation course, and I was really not prepared for it. And it was this tough competition. So
Correct.
For even getting into MBBS, I had to take a drop for 2 years, prepare for the entrance, and then I got into MBBS.
Correct.
So I was not prepared to, do that for another 2 years, like prepare for the postgraduate exam and get into a very, course where you spend another 3 years, 5 years just studying. So I wanted to start my practice immediately after MBBS, but then I heard of this course of DNB in family medicine, and it suited me very well because I didn't want to narrow down my practice to a certain speciality. I wanted to do, a bit of everything. Now in my practice, I get to see little kids, I get to see elders, like elderly geriatrics and gynec issues, minor surgeries like nail excision, corn excisions. I get to do a lot of variety of things, and I like it.
I think I have a similar experience when it comes to my profession as well. Like, I had an option of doing PG, but again, I didn't want to restrict myself to one specialty. Like, I like doing root canals, I also like doing surgeries. So I was happy being just a general dentist, and I think that gives you joy treating everyone. Like, if you are restricted to one
you get
field,
a tunnel vision. You kind of see
nothing against the specialist, we love you all, but we just enjoy doing it.
We can't do without the specialist, but
yes.
that was not my cup of tea.
Yeah, great. So how does your day look like? Can you just walk us through how your day looks like? What kind of patients do you see on a daily basis?
So it would be like any busy mom's day.
Yeah.
I get up, I get my kids ready for school, drop them, to school. I go to the gym. I've recently started working out. So,
Great.
And then I come back, go to the clinic. Yeah, and in the afternoons I get a break. Unlike most jobs,
Correct.
we work in 2 shifts. Doctors work in 2 shifts,
Yeah,
morning
yes.
and evening. So yeah, I get a break in the afternoon where I can, spend time with my friends, spend time with my kids, catch up with them.
Correct.
So yeah, I like this.
The independence,
Flexible
the
hours.
flexibility and independence.
Yes.
And that's where my choice of becoming a dentist over MBBS comes
Right.
from. But now seeing you, I think even a family medicine doctor has that kind of flexibility and
Yes.
independence when
Yes.
it comes to it. Because this might sound a little controversial, and but I just want to ask you that is this field more convenient for women and especially mums, or because you have to take up 2 roles. First is taking care of the family, kids, and then again becoming a full-time doctor, or is this a generalization that
I wouldn't say, why did you ask this before? Because it never occurred to me that ऐसे कोई bias है
Correct.
that females prefer family medicine. Because I have a lot of male friends, colleagues who have
but
done
isn't it
family.
convenient?
See, so the best part of family medicine is you do how much you want to do. Okay, so now if I want to restrict myself to an OPD practice, which I'm doing right now, I can do that. I don't have to be tied to a hospital. So
Correct.
I'm naturally avoiding too many emergency calls.
Correct.
So I get that flexibility. Also, if I'm interested in intensive care, if I'm interested in geriatrics, if I'm interested in pediatrics, I can further do fellowships and certain courses when I can even specialize in certain things that I want to. So now it is up to me what I want to do
So
and how
that-
much I want to do.
So that brings me to my next question. So I was researching about you and I realized that you've done a certification, especially in diabetes as well.
Right.
So can you just elaborate, and what kind of patients do you see, and how, because diabetes is a serious issue when it comes to India, and India is in fact the diabetes capital of the world, if I'm not wrong.
It is.
It is probably top 3 at least.
Right on.
Top. Okay, great. So we are number 1 when it comes to diabetes.
We are the diabetes capital.
And so that's my question. So why did you choose this?
So like you said, that India is the diabetes capital. So out of maybe 10 patients I see in a day, there will be at least 4 who have diabetes. So I really need to
Wow.
be well versed with diabetes.
Correct.
So that is why I went to. So as a family medicine doctor, I obviously can treat diabetes, but I wanted to specialize as new updates keep coming,
Correct.
and you need to be well versed with it.
And what is the age group of patients when it comes to diabetes mellitus, and what our viewers should be aware about, like when should they start getting tested for these diseases, because there is a juvenile type of diabetes which usually kids suffer from, and then there's other type of diabetes. So what kind of, because there are a lot of myths, so I would like you to elaborate on that.
So yeah, diabetes has no restrictions when it comes to age. So you can have a very young child with diabetes and also an elderly person with diabetes. And also it is a misconception that young children wouldn't get type 2 diabetes. So generally it is believed, and it is more common, that the younger people have type 1 diabetes, but we do get type 2 diabetes in younger children also. I think there was a case where a 6-year-old girl had
6-year-old.
type 2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
Can you explain the viewers what is the difference between type 1 and type 2?
So
Difference
type
between-
1 would be where you are insulin dependent. Your body is not making insulin and you have to take insulin.
Correct.
So whereas in type 2, we have a lot of options when it comes to the oral hypoglycemic agents, and also we use insulin in type 2 also. But in type 1, you have only an option of using insulin. Also, previously, we didn't have so many of type 2 cases in India, but now the change in lifestyle. So the stress, the working hours, long working hours, no exercise. So previously people would work in fields and
Correct. So
walk also so much. Right now we are all.
that brings me to my second question regarding diabetes. Like, although it is hereditary or genetic, but what you're trying to say is lifestyle plays an important role, whether someone will carry those defective genes in the next generation or not. Because I have friends whose parents have been diabetics, but fortunately they don't suffer from diabetes. So is it because of the lifestyle?
That the parents have. So
Yes.
not all cases of diabetes are genetic.
Correct.
Your parents may not have it, but you can get it because of your lifestyle. Also, some other factors not just lifestyle only.
Since we are talking about diabetes, what are my chances of getting diabetes if genetically I am predisposed to it or my parents have diabetes?
Yeah, so there is the statistics. So they say that if one of your parents has diabetes, your chance of getting type 2 diabetes is 30 to 40%.
Okay.
And if both of your parents have diabetes, the chance of getting type 2 is 70%. So that's quite significant.
So suppose I am someone whose both parents have diabetes and I am like 70% chances that I might get. Is there a way that with changes in my lifestyle, I can prevent this?
Yeah, so there is no foolproof way of preventing type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
But having a good lifestyle, exercising daily, avoiding refined foods. Refined foods would be sugars, whatever you get in the bakeries and restaurants. Most of them use refined
Palm oil.
Yes.
And that's not good for you. But that brings me to another question. Our Indian diet is extremely carb heavy. Like we eat carbs with carbs, dal with rice. Everything is carbs. So how much does that play a role with regards to diabetes? When you treat your diabetic patients, and I've seen this on a surface level that you tell them to avoid carbs and everything. So how important is the role of Indian diet when it comes to diabetes?
So firstly, I don't feel Indian diet is at fault.
Okay.
So the thing is, our lifestyle has changed so much from working in the fields to now working in offices, sitting for 8 to 10 hours. So now that high carb diet is not suiting us.
Correct.
Also, traditionally, it never used to be a high carb diet. It always had millets, which has a very high fiber content. That was what Indian traditional food was like. You have ragi, bajri, jwari. Those things were the traditional Indian foods. And for certain reasons, we started cultivating rice and wheat, which were never our staple. So now that cultivation has led secondarily to us developing diabetes. I love millets. So it's a very big thing, right?
Correct.
Political thing hai ki why rice and wheat have been started.
Yeah.
Also, if I don't know if you should.
मुझे नहीं
check
पता
on-
था पॉलिटिकल है क्या पॉलिटिकल
Political
है जी जैसे you can elaborate on this.
I don't know the details of all this, but because it was easier and it was more profitable.
Correct.
And I think export से भी related रहेगा इसका too.
Of course.
Millets were not so popular abroad. And if you see जो पंजाब में green revolution आया,
जी.
so they were using a lot of fertilizers, which have led to people having cancers. There are cancer trains going from Punjab to Gujarat for treatment of cancer. उतना वहाँ prevalent है cancer, and all this is because of the use of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers.
Okay.
So all this happened because they wanted to make money out of it.
That's true. But that's how the food and pharma industry works.
Yeah.
And
That's how it works. High carb diet.
Yes.
So basically, a high carb diet, something which has a high glycemic index, should be avoided. Try to have more of complex carbs in your diet, which would have a lot of fiber.
Correct.
So there's a lot of misconception about oats, saying that which is high fiber, but oats, what you get, the processed oats in the market, has a very high glycemic index.
Correct.
As in, glycemic index means the sugar rush in a
Yes.
very short time.
Correct.
And you feel drained after some time.
Okay.
The energy doesn't last. So when you have complex carbs, तो वो digest होने में time लगता है, energy release slowly होता है.
ठीक.
So you last longer.
No pun intended. Let's
No
make that
pun
clear. You
intended.
last longer while you're doing your work and everything. And since we have touched on carbs and fibers, it's a
Yeah.
good time to ask about proteins, because a lot of Indians are vegetarians. And again, what is a good source of protein for vegetarians especially? Because we, especially when you're working out or you're doing high labor, high intensity jobs, you do need proteins to build your muscles, to just have healthy joints.
So vegetarian diet doesn't really lack in protein. The class of proteins, yes.
You are also a vegetarian,
Yeah,
right?
I'm a vegetarian.
Yes, so that's why I asked.
So the thing is, I am a vegetarian and our Peshwas were too.
Okay.
So they didn't lack in any strength. So
Okay.
it is a combination of the foods that you eat. The amino acids in dal make up for the absence of certain amino acids in rice.
Correct.
So that is why we have these combinations. Wherein vegetarians eat certain food items together, because then the requirement of protein is fulfilled.
So now I would like to end the diabetes topic by just asking you a simple last question. What is the age that one should start getting tested for these diseases, and how often should we get it done?
So ideally, we see a lot of young people also with diabetes. I've seen 25-year-olds also with type 2
Yes,
diabetes.
yes.
But I wouldn't recommend every 25-year-old. I would say a 30-year age would be the ideal to get tested for everything, not just diabetes. An annual health check wherein you check for your kidneys, the liver function
Yes,
test, the thyroid test. So what happens is not all diseases are, will give you very strong symptoms initially. So those things can be picked up on a test.
Okay.
Yeah, so you may have fatigue, tiredness, but then maybe your hemoglobin is falling down for some reason.
Correct.
Maybe your diet is not up to the mark. So unless and until you do the tests, you don't understand.
So yearly checkups is more than enough.
Yearly checkup up to the age of 30.
And last thing is dental considerations. I get a lot of
Diabetes.
patients. Yes, I get a lot of patients who are undiagnosed diabetics, and their gum health is a good indicator of
Right.
diabetes. And poor oral hygiene, bleeding tendencies also kind of point towards diabetes. So, how important is
It's
dental?
very important. So generally, the cases we see in the clinical practice, which I see, the patient is unaware of diabetes. So they may have a very poor oral hygiene.
Yes.
Halitosis,
gums are bleeding,
gums
bad
are
breath,
bleeding, bad
yeah.
breath, and periodontitis.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, you have that. They have fungal infections, oral candidiasis.
Correct.
When it has, the sugars have gone uncontrollably high. So people come at that stage to us, and that is when we check and they say, "अरे मुझे तो कुछ diabetes का symptom ही नहीं है."
Correct.
It doesn't work like that. मतलब they are not aware कि ये भी diabetes, dental issues are also a symptom of diabetes.
Yes, oral health is extremely important when it comes to all these systemic
So
diseases.
I do make a point if I newly diagnose a patient. So we
Yeah.
naturally do a eye checkup.
Correct.
I also get a dental checkup done.
Since we are talking about diabetes, this can be cut later because I'm just buying time till I think of the next thing. But now our parents are getting older. I myself turned 40, and I've seen you treat a lot of geriatric patients. Like most of your
Yes.
patients are 60 plus. And how important is geriatric care? Like I'll tell you an incident wherein my father-in-law had a fall last year, and he was
One of the
alone at home.
commonest thing
Yes, yes,
that you see in
yes. So
elderly.
he had a fall, and we make sure that all the time someone is there to look after them. But sometimes they have a fall in the bathroom, and sometimes they can fall. So how important is geriatric care when it comes to family medicine, and what kind of patients you see, and what are the most common diseases and problems that this age group faces?
So, like we discussed, because of the change in lifestyle, we are
Okay.
eating well, we are getting diabetes, but also because of the vaccination and things, our life expectancy has increased. So the geriatric population itself has increased. So earlier, people who would live for 70, we are seeing a lot of 90-year-olds also in our practice now. So the thing is, with age, the immunity decreases, immunity is compromised. There are a lot of infections like pneumonia. Also, I need to talk about dentures.
Correct.
Sometimes in sleep, if they have not removed it, they
They
can
can
choke on it.
Swallow and
Yeah,
aspirate.
then falls are very common, and that is why vaccination in adults, and especially for people who have diabetes, is important.
So you do get vaccines for diabetes as well,
No, not vaccinations for diabetes.
but diabetics.
Diabetics and also elderly who are immunocompromised. Anybody who's immunocompromised, or generally anybody about the age of 50, should get these vaccines. So pneumococcal.
So what all vaccines do you usually prescribe to your geriatric patients?
So a flu shot, annual flu shot, should be taken. So that is to prevent influenza. Influenza is very common, but in an elderly age group, it causes pneumonia. So there will be meningococcal, pneumococcal vaccines. These are all again for pneumonia, meningitis, herpes vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what we recommend. So the sad part is our families are growing smaller.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that. Like now, initially we had a joint family structure. Now it has become nuclear families, wherein we're not around our
Right.
parents that often. So how do you deal with those challenges?
So yeah, so for me personally, being a physician, like I said, I get afternoons free, so I get the time to spend the time with my father also, who is 70 plus,
Okay.
along with my children. So that is a very important thing for me. And with age, it's not just falls or diabetes or immunity. They face a lot of depression also because they are lonely. Most elderly parents, the children have either flown away or both, as in they are working, the daughter, the son-in-law, or the son and the daughter, everybody is working.
Correct.
They don't really have anybody to talk to. So that does lead to depression. So I would like to say that spend more time with your parents. What happens is in elderly depression very often goes undiagnosed because they think अरे sad है, खाना नहीं खा रहा है, mood नहीं है. But very often it is depression, clinical depression.
Clinical depression.
Yeah.
And this is a issue that not just the geriatrics are facing. I think this entire generation, thanks to social media, we have become a very lonely generation, I feel. And if you are struggling with your mental health, it's always a good idea to first speak with your family physician and then probably feel a
Right.
That's another problem that I see with patients. Two things I want to touch upon. First is over-the-counter medication and the misuse of antibiotics.
Right.
One of my uncle has a box full of medicines and he has labeled them. अगर सर्दी हुआ तो ये लेना
तो
है.
अभी क्या हो गया, azithromycin has become like peppermint. एक
Yes.
लॉजेंजेस जैसा स्टेटस हो गया
Yes.
because azithromycin मुझे सर्दी हो गया, मैं मेरे पास आते मैंने 2 दिन azithromycin खाया, कुछ भी
Yes.
डोज खाया
हाँ.
और मैं ठीक नहीं हुआ, तो now you give me some other antibiotic. I'm like, you don't need an antibiotic. Viral
Correct.
fever है, 7 दिन चलेगा, तो तेरे को एंटीबायोटिक की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Why did you take?
So this misuse, like the way Dolo 650 has been misused after COVID, it's a meme now. So I just want to know how badly has this affected your practice or in general medicine, because what I face in our dentistry is when a patient comes to me, he comes usually at the last stage wherein he has tried 5 days course of Augmentin, which is like the most powerful antibiotic, taken all the medicines, antibiotics and painkillers, and then he expects us to treat him at the last stage. So how do we avoid this? And secondly, what does this rampant use of antibiotics lead to? Yes.
So I think our government has taken a very good step because now they have started that if you are writing an antibiotic, you have to give the indication. So I can't just give you antibiotic because your throat is congested.
Correct.
I have to mention that yeah, you have tonsillitis. So I can't just randomly. Most of the prescriptions, if you see of GPs, would be without any history, without any examination,
True.
just the medicine part. So it shouldn't be. You have to have a diagnosis and you have to justify why the antibiotic has been given.
Correct.
But more importantly, I think that the people have to be educated. They have to be
Yes.
told about antibiotic resistance and why is it that I am hesitating to give you an antibiotic. मतलब मैं इतना क्यों सोच रही हूँ? मैं अपने बच्चों को, मेरे बच्चे को 5-7 दिन तक जब तक बुखार नहीं होता, I don't give him an antibiotic. Even for my daughter, my daughter is 11. I have given an antibiotic for 2 or 3 times till now. So you don't really need antibiotics to get better from fever.
But ये बात लोगों को जानना बहुत जरूरी है.
And yes, I think the onus is on the doctor. So every time your patient comes to him, first when the patient comes to you, like I told you already, 2 दिन का azithromycin खा के आया है. Azithromycin now in upper URT, upper respiratory tract infection is useless. So it has become like a placebo कि भाई मतलब कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है कि patient, I shouldn't tell this, but it's like a placebo कि patient is insisting कि भाई मुझे antibiotic चाहिए,
जी.
तो मैं azithromycin लिखती हूँ.
जी.
Like, and I laugh at myself कि यार.
नहीं, ये तो 90s में बड़ा कॉमन था. लाइक माय ग्रैंड मदर, उनको जब तक सलाइन नहीं लगाते थे तब
हाँ.
तक उनको नहीं लगता था कि
सलाइन दो, इंजेक्शन दो. अभी भी
So-
I get a lot of people who say डॉक्टर सलाइन लगेगा. I'm like, why do you want saline? Are you vomiting?
नो बट
तुमको
अगर
क्या
आप
हो रहा है?
सलाइन नहीं लगाते तो आप रियल डॉक्टर नहीं हो.
नहीं, they don't get better until you poke them with a syringe.
Yes.
Most elderly, मतलब अभी मैंने देखा mostly I think ये rural population जो है,
जी जी जी.
जो who have recently shifted to the metro.
That's why I said it was a very 90s
Yeah, and
but
no, even 90s thing नहीं है. I've seen 20-30 year olds also, but जो अभी गांव से आए हैं,
जी.
जो recently shifted to the city, they still ask for an injection कि मैं फटाफट ठीक हो जाऊंगा, इंजेक्शन दूंगा, मैं फटाफट ठीक हो जाऊंगा. ऐसे नहीं होता. I have to tell them कि it takes the same time, it's the same medicine.
correct.
I am increasing complications by giving you injection. And saline तो it's like randomly कोई आगे saline लगा रहा है, मैं नहीं देती.
जो एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस होता है उससे कितना प्रॉब्लम बढ़ रहा है?
So basically antibiotic resistance मतलब क्या? मतलब आप जब छोटे हो, आपके पापा डांट रहे हैं आपको.
जी.
So if एक गलती हुई, मतलब बहुत बड़ी गलती हुई, डाटा अंडरस्टूड, पर अगर रोज डांट रहे हैं तो यू गेट रेजिस्टेंस. आप सुनना एक कान से सुन के दूसरे कान से छोड़ देते हो, दैट इज रेजिस्टेंस. सो बेसिकली यहाँ पापा इज एंटीबायोटिक एंड बच्चा इज आप.
Correct.
So the effect stops. मतलब अगर वही and हाँ, why it comes because you are taking it in the wrong dose. You are taking it for a shorter time.
Correct.
मतलब एक schedule होता है. You have to take an antibiotic for 5 or 7 whatever prescribed days,
Correct.
which a doctor would know depending on what condition you have. So pharmacist wouldn't know that. A
Correct.
shopkeeper will not know that. Neither will the patient know कि मुझे अगर urine tract infection है मुझे कितने दिन लेना है. The patient wouldn't know.
Correct.
सो अगर मुझे थ्रोट इन्फेक्शन है कितने दिन लेना है, दे डोंट नो. मैं 2 दिन में ठीक हो गया, मैंने बंद कर दिया, और फिर नेक्स्ट टाइम आता है मैंने लास्ट टाइम का एंटीबायोटिक पड़ा था, मैंने वो खा लिया और वो ठीक नहीं हुआ इसलिए मैं आया.
सेम चीज़ पेन किलर के बारे में भी मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ. लाइक सारे पेन किलर्स का मिसयूज़ का सबसे जो पेशेंट्स इतने मिसयूज़ करते हैं, हमारे फील्ड में भी काफ़ी लोग पेन किलर्स लेते हैं, तो उसके साइड इफेक्ट्स क्या होते हैं लॉन्ग टर्म में?
वेरी strong side effects, I would say.
Yeah.
Kidney damage, and it is a lifelong thing. If you get a chronic kidney disease, so kidney disease mein a lot of times the painkillers are responsible.
Correct.
Over the counters. Patients taking it for a long period of time where they have not been prescribed it. मेरे को लो बैक पेन है, डॉक्टर ने MRI करने बोले, मुझे MRI नहीं करना, तो मैं पेन किलर खाए जा रहा हूँ. मतलब एक प्रिस्क्रिप्शन पे एक बार लिखा है, they show the same prescription, take it again. So I have mentioned it on my prescription not to dispose more than the said amount of days. So that is very important.
See,
and also I feel government policies have to change. मतलब pharmacists should be taken.
I think there are better watchdogs with this. I have seen in the past few years there is scope for improvement, but वो definitely वो भी अपने हिसाब से अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे ये misuse both antibiotics और pain killer का शायद कम हो. And now
painkillers also, I would say somebody, you know, a lot of people don't know that pregnancy may it can harm your fetus.
Yes.
It can decrease your WBC counts. It can, like kidney damage is the severest thing that can happen.
And also addiction, long-term painkiller addiction.
That would be to opioids.
Okay.
So if you're taking opioids, so definitely addiction.
Now
cough syrups also. Cough syrups is a
cough syrup addiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So codeine होता है.
I used to love cough syrup, but it was Ayurvedic. It was Adulsa.
अच्छा. So,
I think that's fine.
So okay. Let me touch on Ayurvedic medicines. So why is it assumed that Ayurvedic medicines are safe?
Okay, I don't want to get into
No,
that.
because I see whatever has effect will have a side effect. ऐसा नहीं है कि तेरा खांसी ठीक होगा और देखो कोई और साइड इफेक्ट नहीं होगा ना. साइड इफेक्ट तो होता ही है. Whatever has an effect has as an एक्शन रिएक्शन है ना, तो इफेक्ट होगा, साइड इफेक्ट भी होगा. ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई मैंने आयुर्वेदिक ले लिया तो मुझे कुछ साइड इफेक्ट नहीं होगा. आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन आल्सो कॉज अ लॉट ऑफ किडनी डैमेज बिकॉज दे हैव हेवी मेटल्स.
Yes, lead की मात्रा काफी ज्यादा होती है. So just research your medicines. Just speak with your
No, I
family
would say
physician.
research is again dangerous.
Oh.
So Google doctor.
Okay.
Google doctor और भी dangerous होता है.
ठीक है.
कि I had a lady come to me 2 days back. बच्ची है 10-12 साल, 10 साल की probably. Like my daughter has some swelling here and I struggle to find. मुझे finally एक छोटा सा lymph node लगा and then she was like, ये कुछ dangerous नहीं है ना? I'm like, no. तो she was like, आप she insisted, मेरी बेटी ने insist किया मुझे डॉक्टर के पास लेके चलो, क्योंकि मैंने उसको गूगल पे पढ़ा हमने कि neck swellings differential diagnosis क्या क्या हो सकते हैं, it could be a cancer. ये पढ़ के वो मेरे पास आए. I said no, ये normal है.
Yeah, that is very common. But I think you must
So
have
yes,
seen
but
that.
if there's something that you know is suddenly increasing in size
Yeah.
or
Then obviously
changing
you
in
should.
form, then you should consider.
Yeah, that brings me to the next question, and which is a very important aspect of overall health. So ये lump वाले केस से मुझे आपको एक सवाल पूछना था. Like breast cancer is a serious issue which women are facing, and how someone can not diagnose exactly, but what all precautions, or if you have a growth or a lump, how can you detect it at a surface level or at your home? क्या देखना चाहिए उन्होंने, या तो how should they deal with this?
Okay, so if you notice a lump in your breast, so a lot of lumps are benign and they are not cancerous, but what you should see is this there's something called a self breast examination that you can do at home, where you see the surface of the breast, the skin over the lump, whether it is wrinkled or we call it pudy orange, where it is puckered, the holes like what a orange peel looks like, वैसे दिखेगा. If it is a cancerous lump, you have to notice whether it is painful or not, or it is growing in size. Something that is growing very fast in size, something that is very hard, is very likely to be cancerous. But I'm not saying wait for it to grow. The
Correct.
moment you notice a lump, I think you should go and see your doctor, ideally a surgeon.
And what about smears and mammographs? How important are they, and how often should one get them done?
So ideally, when in a lady who is below 40 years of age, if we notice a lump, we get a sonography because the breasts are firmer. Later on, after 40, when the breast gets denser, we recommend a mammogram. Also, somebody who has a family history of cancer should go for an annual health check, annual checkup with the doctor for breast examination, and they would recommend mammography as required.
Okay. I wanted to touch on this topic because lately it has been trending a lot. HPV vaccines. Why should I take a HPV vaccine? Whether I should take an HPV vaccine or not? What is the age group? And how serious of an issue is this?
Why we should take it? It is to prevent cervical cancer, which is the commonest cancer in Indian women, commonest cause of death by cancer
In Indian women.
Yes. So that is why cervical cancer vaccine is important. If you can prevent it, yes, why not? Who should take it? People who are not actually in the reproductive age. We want to hit them early, before they are sexually active. So
Pre-puberty.
not pre-puberty.
Pre-teens, like 11 to 13.
Yeah, teenagers mostly.
Okay.
And right now the recommendation is starting from 8 years old. Earlier we were recommending it only for the females, but now yes, the boys also, the teenage boys also should get vaccinated. Because ultimately it's a sexually transmitted diseases. Then the more number of people that are vaccinated, the better chances we have of preventing it. Also remember that no vaccine is 100% effective. So we try our best.
Okay. So this might sound a little controversial, but is family medicine more convenient for you as a female doctor?
But I would like to bring up one incident. Rather, it happens very often that being in my own clinic with my name there, out there, I wouldn't be recognized as a doctor because people would assume I'm a nurse or a receptionist because I am a female. So this happens quite often. So people come, walk right into my clinic, look at me sitting in my chair and ask me, where is the doctor? So that is hurt. So I will tell him, मैं ही doctor हूँ, मैं ही हूँ. How?
But that's how our society works. I think
Yeah,
there
so
is
there are a lot of
sense
stereotypes. So if you're a doctor, you should be wearing a light
White
colored,
shirt.
you should be male
Yeah.
primarily. You'd have specs, which you do, and maybe wear a light colored shirt and
Yes.
be very presentable, easy on the eye types. So personally, that I wouldn't call myself a conventional looking doctor.
And there are some stereotypes that people have.
Yeah.
People have preconceived notions about how a doctor should look like.
Yeah.
I personally faced that because I had long hair. I used to come to my clinic on my cycle.
So it wouldn't
Yeah.
just be about the gender. I think it's just about how you look,
Yes.
probably.
And that's
But
fine.
yes, definitely, it comes with being a female. This has been like ever since our MBBS days or internship, that if you are a female, they'll call you baby, tai, or didi, nurse, sister.
Yeah.
But they'll never address you as doctor. Whereas a male intern would be called as a doctor, whether you wear a apron, doctor's apron or not.
Okay. And the second thing I wanted to ask you was about headaches. A lot of people suffer from different types of headaches, whether it is migraine or some other sort of headache. And most of these, not most, but some of these headaches can be tied down to dental issues. So what kind of patients that come to your practice have these kind of headaches? And I have one case to share wherein this patient of mine who was 30 years old and she had been taking migraine medications for more than 10 years. She had been to the best neurophysicians and she was almost in tears when she came to me. And we realized that the issue was not migraine, it was dental related. She had a lot of fillings and a lot of restorations that needed to be done. And there is something known as TMDs, temporomandibular disorders, wherein the interferences in your bite, they lead to these headaches. And we were able to diagnose that. We treated her. And when she was finally free of that pain, the kind of joy she had. She literally had tears in her eyes. So I just wanted to know about how, if someone is suffering from a headache, what is the checklist that you as a family physician do to diagnose it properly?
So headache is a vast topic. You
Yes,
can write
yes.
books on headache. I wouldn't like to go into details, but I would tell you what I commonly see. Like you said, temporomandibular joint problems are there, definitely. But very often, a headache is labeled as a migraine by a GP, wherein a headache है तो migraine है. People are taking, painkillers for long durations, like years, 2-3 years. मेरे को neck headache है, यहाँ पे है. They're taking painkillers on and off for 2 years, 3 years. So very often I've seen that it is related to it's a referred pain from the neck muscles or the jaw. So people have a very we are working for 8 hours sitting on our desk. We don't do too much of exercise. Nowadays sitting is the new smoking, so it does cause a lot of problems like backaches and neck aches, and neck muscle tightness is very often referred to as causes a referred headache.
Correct.
So that is a very major problem, and people don't easily diagnose it. So generally, when I see a patient with a headache, I first check the neck muscle. I see for any knots or tightness in the muscle.
Correct.
And I have seen 9 out of 10 cases that it is the neck pain with stretching, with physiotherapy. Painkiller, yes, for a short duration, while the pain is acute. And later on, physiotherapy and ergonomics, desk ergonomics and work ergonomics. Also, your kitchen ergonomics matter a lot.
Yeah.
And your bed, how the pillow is, the mattress, everything matters.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita, for taking time out. This was quite an insightful conversation. I'm sure we digressed at some points and we touched on a lot of different aspects of medicine, of health. But I think that's how family medicine is.
And it's an amalgamation of all the systems. It's a very holistic field.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Rohan, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you and visiting your clinic, which is so tastefully done. And also, we did digress on a lot of topics, but I would feel this is not a lecture, it's more like a conversation between old friends over a cup of coffee.
Black coffee.
Right, black coffee.
Black coffee conversations.
Episode
late. That's late. But that's how we are. Thank you. That's a wrap up.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
I
go.
hope it's good.
Let's hope.